This video is brought to you by the Amish. Hello everyone and welcome to the Topical Hour. Top Gun Maverick is what every 21st century action drama movie should aspire to be. 130 minutes of real G's, real speed, and real F-18s. Where other movies hide in the dark, shady corner of fabricated adventure, Top Gun Maverick boldly goes where most are too fearful to travel, into a land of pure cinematic masterpieces. The first time I watched Maverick, I stared in awe at the beautiful cinematography, the F-18s rumbling across the carrier deck. The second time I watched Maverick, I marveled at the complex choreographed flight sequences. It seemed as if Kaczynski had made an Italian ballet with F-18s dancing across the screen. The third time I watched Maverick, I focused on the story. I found that this is one of the only action movies that does the storyline well, in part because Kaczynski allows the story to take a back seat while not leaving any semblance of reality. Now admittedly, there are some flaws as there are in any movie. The trench run at the end smells suspiciously like a similar scene in Star Wars Episode 4. On top of that, the mission doesn't even really make sense with the information we're given. A stealth bomber such as a B-2 could have simply snuck into enemy airspace and dropped a much larger ordnance, ensuring that comes with replacing the last one. Penny has a daughter and the movie tries to pretend that the facility was destroyed. But those are more logical fallacies, and I think this movie is fine to have those just because I'm enjoying it so much. The real thing I have an issue with is some of the story bits. If you don't know, the story starts off with Pete Mitchell, callsign Maverick, testing out some big high-tech plane and crashing it at Mach 10 point something. And yeah, if you're over the age of 7, you'd know that Mav would have been ripped apart, but moving along. This leads him into being in hot water with the Big Daddy government, and Iceman bails him out, but he's still gonna have to do a mission for the Big Daddy before he can go back to doing what he wants to do. And the mission is to prepare a bunch of other people for a mission. Now if you know Mav, he truly believes that no one can fly as well as he can. No contest. He fully believes in his abilities and his don't think just do attitude. And we also know that because of this, he's gonna have a problem sending a bunch of youngins to go do a mission he can't be on. An impossible mission at that. Throw in a strict timetable and this whole movie is him agonizing over every decision he makes over fear of it being the wrong one. And to make things worse, remember his best buddy from the last movie, Goose? Well, Goose's son, callsign Rooster, is fully of the opinion that it's Mav's fault that Goose died. It doesn't help that Mav apparently pulled his papers from the Naval Academy, and while I may have an IQ below 3, I still know that that's not good. So everyone's pressuring Mav to be perfect at once, and we have a new love interest to spice things up a little bit more. But eventually Mav and Rooster reach an understanding and the mission succeeds, and everyone goes home happy. Like I said before though, this movie has a few issues. This is your reminder to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Also go follow the Topical Hour Twitter link in the description. Bye bye. First off, Maverick has now become a caricature of himself. If you watch the first movie and this back-to-back, you'll notice instantly that Maverick is more Tom Cruise than Pete Mitchell now. And that's fine, I guess. I wasn't going into this movie thinking that Maverick would be exactly the same as like 30 years ago, but the real offender of this, and I know this will upset some people, is Iceman. I kinda wish Iceman was still true to his character. He was kind of a jerk in the last movie, and I don't see why that would go away. Now the film treats him like some kind of saint who's a better person and mentor than Maverick. Why? It's not helped by the fact that no one was watching this movie thinking, man, Iceman's back. They were thinking, wow, the guy who plays Iceman came back after all these years. It would have been a bit cooler if we still had that hot-headed nature coming from him. But that's not to say his character is bad. What is bad is that the love interest from last movie isn't even brought up a single time. Just one line in the movie to acknowledge that she exists would have been nice. And the new love interest isn't bad, probably better than the last one, but it's complicated by all the stuff she's way younger or way older than she is at any given time. It's strange. As for all the new flight school youngins, they're actually all really good. Rooster is seemingly still spiteful after all these years, but the first scene we get with him shows us his character without all the rage that comes later, and that was a good choice. Hangman is great because you'd naturally have at least one person in a group like this who's pretty skilled, but is also inconsistent and kind of a Nimrod. Phoenix is a masterclass example of how to have a strong female character that isn't a love interest, is funny sometimes, and doesn't feel forced. Coyote is black, and then there's also Bob, who I thought would be a weak Peter Parker stand-in, but nope, he's just really good at his job and is an asset to the team. As for the action and junk, I'm not the most knowledgeable person on planes and fighter jets, but I saw the big explosions. They did something right. And obviously, unless you were living under a rock before this movie came out, you'd know that this movie was filmed practically a lot of the time, which is pretty impressive when you really consider how difficult that'd be. I think the most intriguing part of this film, at least to me, is that there's also not really a villain. I mean, sure, you have the unnamed, probably Russian enemies that are face down at the end, and like it's cold in Russia and there's snow at the end. But I mean, in terms of an actual antagonist, there aren't really any noticeable ones. If you want to say Cyclone, I guess, but even he lets Mav take control of the team eventually. The closest we get to one is Ed Harris at the beginning, and even then he's only in the film for like 3 minutes. But the real highlight of this film is the beach volleyball. It is the climax, where we see the mission play out in the final attempt, and we have our characters put to the ultimate test. They face, quote, 5th generation fighters, they face the high forces of gravity, they face narrow valleys that anyone less skilled would fail to navigate, and then the act itself, bombing the small entrance that takes out the rest of the operable space. Then Han tells Luke that shot was 1 in a million, and the rebels go home to celebrate the... Wait, Pete ends up getting shot down so Rooster can escape, but then Rooster decides not to escape on the off chance that he's still alive. And I think if there's one tiny insignificant issue with the finale, it's this bit. There's a bit of a drag to the actual finale, which is Mav and Rooster trying to make it home. It just feels like the end is split in 2 parts, and there's like a 5-minute stretch of a lot less happening. It's just paced a bit weirdly. But nevertheless, the bit where they try to make it home was probably the best part and the most fun to watch sequence out of either of the Top Gun movies, and that's saying something. Just to finally get to see Mav in his element taking out planes left and right using unorthodox tactics and just general awesomeness on his part. And a great touch is that he's not invincible. He takes a few hits and he doesn't even take down the last fighter. And yeah, I guess the side youngins don't get a ton to do at the very end, and yeah, there's surprisingly little falling action. Like, we beat the non-Russians and then Mav lives happily ever after, roll credits. But even so, this movie is a miracle of filmmaking. The fact that this film ever even happened is an accomplishment, simply from a perspective of production. The technical achievement of this motion picture cannot be overstated, and the fact that we have a movie with great effects, great practical stunts, and a really solid story is an accomplishment in itself. So many different factors come together to make a great movie and succeed. Even the trailer for this movie was impressive. When I saw it for the first time in theaters, I had no idea what it was, and I was still hyped. I had to go back and watch the original, and it only got more enticing. It's engaging yet simple and straightforward, not overcomplicated, and done just right. However, if I had to nitpick one last thing, it's Tom Cruise's general look. I don't know what it is, or why, or how it happened, but Tom Cruise looks almost orange throughout the entire movie. Like greasy and weird. I know everyone was super sweaty in the original, and believe me, if the worst effect of being 60 years old is slightly orange skin, that's fine. But it's really distracting. Like the scene where Penny and Mav are hanging out in her room for no particular reason at all, it looks strange and forced. The way they're sitting doesn't look natural at all, and his skin tone looks so aggressively weird, but maybe that's just me. And the last thing I want to talk about is the title. I don't know if I could suggest a better one, but I wish the title Maverick didn't focus so hard on Mav. I wish there was some other title that got the job done, but that's really just splitting hairs, and it has no bearing on the final number score. Speaking of which, Top Gun Maverick gets a score of 10 out of 10. It's easily the most watchable movie of 2022, as in I could show literally anyone in the US this film, and it would be impossible not to enjoy it, even if Mav has orange skin. Everyone who worked on it should be proud that their efforts paid off in such a big way. Anyways, if you enjoyed, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, or one of the screws in the jet going Mach 10 point something will come loose and hit you at an undisclosed time. It will be violent. I would suggest just subscribing and liking the video. Or not, that's fine. Play nice, people.